does take a village, and we actually had so much momentum in a site we never held a cleanup before. We had to close registration. There was so much energy around this cleanup. And we're going to be pulling out probably 7,000 to 8,000 pounds of trash today, just in a few hours. And so it's really empowering for these volunteers to get to see what they can do and the power that they have to make a difference in 1 hour even. And so, you know, our hope is that we will not continue to be doing these cleanups forever. We do not consider ourselves the custodians of the river. We want to take people out there. We hope this is an educational experience. We have a slogan with Keep the Tennessee River Beautiful, and it is your river, your impact. And it really
Good afternoon,
is
Commissioner.
you...
If we will come to order, we will call to order the monthly meeting of the Anderson County Budget Committee. Robbie, when you're ready, if you would call the roll, please.
Okay, Commissioner White. Roll call. Thank you. Commissioner Foster.
Here.
Commissioner Smallridge.
Here.
Commissioner Beauchamp.
Here.
Commissioner Wandell.
Here.
Commissioner Denenberg is absent. She called me, and who's Steve? Oh, Commissioner Vandegrift. Here. Sorry. And Commissioner Chairman Bell.
Here.
I forgot my little spreadsheet today.
Let the record reflect we do have a quorum. If y'all will join me in prayer, and then afterwards we'll ask Commissioner Wandell to lead us in the pledge. Heavenly Father, once again, we come to you tonight giving you honor and praise and thanking you, Lord, for all the good things in our life, most of all for salvation, the Holy Spirit, that if we allow will lead us and guide us in the right direction in everything. Please forgive us of our sins, times, Lord, that we don't let the Holy Ghost guide us as you would have us to go. Strengthen us today as we meet. Give us your wisdom, your discernment to be able to make decisions, Father, that's best in your eyes, that's best for your people. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. Before we get started, I want to take just a minute to thank every man and woman who has ever worn one of our nation's military's uniforms. You all have paid a debt to our country that we will never be able to repay back to you, especially those who have served in combat situations. I can't imagine what each one has went through in those situations. I always considered myself to be too big of a mama's boy to have tried to go through the military, but I certainly respect and love and admire everyone that did. So I want to just take a minute to thank you all for that. Starting with our agenda, first item is the cash and fund balance report. Director Holbrook, go ahead, sir.
Okay, on these cash and fund balance report, these are audited numbers, so there were some changes to some of the fund balances. But in the general fund, reading across that line, the restricted funds are 1.1 million, committed funds 1.6 million, assigned funds 3.1, unassigned fund balance 10.1 million, for a total fund balance of $16,074,855, and cash is $12,971,391. And we put, Tracy requested totals at the end, and we made that change for you this time. So, any questions on the fund balance report?
Hearing none, moving on.
Okay, sales tax. That our trend continues for this year to be just a little bit under last year's totals. We were 9% less this year for the county as a whole, and for Anderson County's portion, down 11%, which we had been up the last 3 months, and this month we're down from 539 to 477. So, but we're just under, and I think that's what we're going to see the rest of the year, just right under last year's numbers. So, anyway. Well, I think that I think last year there was a lot of money being put in the economy, and with prices of I mean, a lot's changed from a year ago when you look at the price of gas and the price of groceries, and people are spending their money on a lot of other items besides orders from Amazon or whatever, I would think, so. I mean, we'll see good numbers through the Christmas holidays, obviously, we always do, so. And I don't think these are bad numbers, and one good thing, I was telling Commissioner Smallridge this, earlier this week, we've never really budgeted our sales tax, what we've collected the last few years, because we've never had numbers to go by when we started collecting internet sales tax for a 3-year average. So it's continued to go up. This year, it's kind of leveling off, but we still, even what we are getting this year for sales tax, we haven't budgeted for still. We're still projected to be above our budgeted goal, so, even though we're leveling off, if that makes sense. Because we just have never, we didn't have anything to compare it to, so we didn't know we were gonna make $3 more million in sales tax. I mean, it kind of was hard to believe the numbers that were coming in for us the last couple of years. So it's finally leveled off, which are still really good numbers, but, we have we have a pattern to go by now with the last 3 years.
Christmas has come early.
Right.
I remember we were all kind of hesitant to make any major decisions, thinking
Right.
maybe there's a mistake, and the other shoe's gonna drop before too long, but it hadn't yet.
Chairman, so we're still making more than the budget. I mean, we're on
Yes.
pace to be over budget when it
Right.
comes to the revenue compared to
So-
what we budgeted.
Like this year for the general fund, we budgeted $1,750,000 for sales tax, and with our we only had 3 months of collections so far this fiscal year, but we're projected to get 1.9 million.
Okay,
So, and we've received 1.9 last year also.
okay, thanks.
So-
Any further discussion? All right, moving on.
Okay,
Next
before we get
item.
into the budget amendments, I just had one, I know Catherine put this in the purchasing agenda, and I wanted to mention this because it went through our budget committee, but I think it was the month I was out, Randy did the amendment for the laundry services at the jail, and we had there was some question whether we should, I could have declared that an emergency and took that one quote we had, but we set aside up to $143,138. Our bid came back at $111,705.28. They've already been installed. And the company that we got our first quote from would have been probably 10 more weeks before we would have gotten them. So we did a really good thing, but waiting on doing a RFP and a bid and putting it out for bids. So that was a win, so I wanted to let y'all know that.
And we, on behalf of the jail, certainly appreciate that. And apparently, the capabilities of these washers and dryers too are more than what we had. And we're actually looking for an efficiency cost savings on the long end of looking at it, so.
So, yeah, and because of that, I put $31,432 back into the fund balance with the leftover money, so that is already back in fund balance. So.
Good question.
Commissioner Wando?
So how many units do we buy?
5?
Five washers and 6 dryers, or
That's what I was thinking.
Yep.
washers and 5 dryers, 11 total.
Cool.
That was an odd thing. The problem with that, at the time, back in 2015, I guess, when we purchased the original ones, the capacity that the washers had was more than the capacities that the dryers had. So we couldn't take a load straight out of the washing machine and put it in the dryer without straining the capabilities. It's kind of like you buy the hot dogs and then you buy the buns and they never do, match up with them. It's kind of like that's the way I explain it, but hopefully with these new purchases, we won't have that problem anymore.
Yeah, anyway. All right, just a little bit of information there. And I will say too, Catherine is a stickler. She really wants the bid process, always pushing for that, and I credit her for that. So she does a good job. All right, transfers, there were 3 of them, 1 through 3, seeking approval as a group. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Do we have a motion?
Move for approval as a group?
Commissioner Smallridge moves to approve item 1 through 3 as a group. Do we have second? Second by Commissioner White. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay, the Appropriations for the school department, there are four, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 of them, 4 through 8. Seeking approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and Dr. Parrott is here also to answer questions if you have any.
Do we have a motion? Commissioner White moves to approve items 4 through 8 as a group. Is that correct, Commissioner White, as a group?
4 through 8.
Four through, yes, sir.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Foster. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Commissioner Wandell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Parrott, I noticed the land for the parking. What size property are we buying there?
That is, it's a corner lot, it's a little over a half acre.
Okay. And then the 300,000 for janitorial supplies, is that just the normal acquisition during the year, or is this something that come up?
What has happened is, everything is just, the cost of it is just went astronomical. And so, right now, what we're looking, the reason we're putting this in here is some things like wax and some things we need for summer maintenance, we're gonna go ahead and start purchasing them now, so we have them on track. So we don't think that we'll use all that, but we wanted to put that much in there just to make sure, because you never know what's gonna happen.
Thank you.
Commissioner Foster.
The building improvements,
Yes.
are there certain locations those are going to, or just multiple?
No, it's just multiple things. What we did is that was put in, a lot of that was put in there to finish the softball field, because what had happened is a lot of the POs that we had open, we had to close them out because they'd been open too long. So that money rolled back into the regular undesignated, so we pulled that back out.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay, 9 through 11 are from the highway department. It's 3 appropriations.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner White moves to approve items 9 through 11. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Foster. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay, number 12 is from the county clerk. It's increasing revenue for business tax, $1,500, and printing and stationery for $1,500.
Move for approval?
Motion made by Commissioner Smallridge to approve item number 12, seconded by Commissioner Foster. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
13 is for the sheriff's department. It is a $3,000 donation, increasing revenue, and jail construction for other construction at the jail for $3,000 for a break area.
Motion made by Commissioner Foster to approve item number 13. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner White. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay, number 14 is from the fleet services for $10,785.73. It's insurance recovery money that he received from the flood of that building. So we are still going to be receiving even more money than this, but this is our second payment from Tennessee Risk Management.
Commissioner Foster moves to approve item number 14, seconded by Dr. Smallridge. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, is this half of the money that we're going to expect, or is it a third of the money that we're going to expect?
We probably got more than half now. This is our second budget amendment we've done we've completed for the motor pool, and I think there's just a smaller amount left, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this is most of it.
Okay, thank you.
I'd also like to add, those of you who have not had the opportunity to go over there and let John show you around, to show you what damage had been done and what repairs are needed, I'd suggest that if you get a chance to do that, I hadn't been fully aware of the full extent of it until I did. They really try to make do as best they can with what equipment's left over that they can salvage, so. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried.
Okay, 15 and 16 are from the library board for $400 and $6,290 out of their restricted funds.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner White moves to approve item number 15
And 16.
and 16 as a group. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Smallridge. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried.
Number 17 is from Anderson County Television for $12,450 out of their undesignated fund balance for part-time help, communication, a gas increase, and insurance for their vehicles, which I asked them to put that in because they have 3 vehicles and weren't collecting any insurance from them, so.
Do we have a motion?
Motion approved.
Commissioner Foster moves to approve item number 17. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner White. Any discussion?
The part-time, Mr. Chairman, the
Mhm.
part-time help, is that for the remainder of this current year?
Yes, it would be for the services they provide. I mean, I think they're covering a lot of ball games, graduations, I mean, more events than they have in the past. They did this last year also. I think I'll try to get with them to get this in the budget for next fiscal year, so we won't have to do this again.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried.
Okay, number 18 is stormwater from Danny Phillips and the mayor. It's asking for the use of ARP funds for $103,060 for there's a very long explanation at the bottom, for stormwater, to comply with our Phase 2 small MS4 permit. The county is supposed to keep a digitized stormwater infrastructure map with all streams and outfalls identified through the jurisdiction. Basically, they get audited every year, a stormwater audit, and they've been requesting this for the last several years. And eventually, we're going to get an audit finding, and we're being required to do it. We've gotten out, I mean, we basically need to do this, so that's what it boils down to. So it's a good use of ARP funds, which also is the 4.9 million, which has more restrictions. We can use those funds for this, so the mayor may want to say any more.
Commissioner Foster.
So is this the contracted service to put all this together, or is it staff
Yes.
that's doing that? Okay.
Yes, so we just utilize for stormwater coordinator, just part of Danny's job, and then that next level certification, we actually do an annual contract for that next level certification, so if there are higher needs, and so we've been able to save a lot of money that way. We've actually, the stormwater budget, I think, I can't even remember, Robbie, if you have a budget book, it's like 30-some thousand, and sometimes we don't even need all of that, because that's basically hourly, by the hourly when we have needs. So yes, that's what that would be.
So is the 103 the cap, or have we already got
Yes.
prices on what this is gonna
Yes,
cost?
yes,
Okay.
that's the cap.
Okay.
I got a question. Is this a one-time thing, or is this gonna be an every year thing?
It's a one-time thing, so we have to actually, there will be people out in the field going out to enter all of these areas, the outfalls, the flow, all of that will be out in the field, and then they come back in, and then the environmental team puts it all into that database for us. So it's a one-time, and then we'll have it, and then if things change, then the staff internally in the planning department will change or adjust or whatever. So it's one time only.
Dr. Small.
Mayor, is this a requirement that we need to do this? And how will that be used once it's completed?
It's just part of the requirement for that MS4, the municipal stormwater permit program. So, we have a stormwater resolution that is a requirement for us as a MS4 small, we're a small system, but we have to have all of this data, we have to have policies and procedures, we have to have response plans from everything from, so for instance, if there's construction and development, then our stormwater resolution has to outline how we're going to address stormwater runoff. So that is put in place, and I wanted Danny to be here so he could be more literate on this, and he's out of town, but he will be available for full commission if there are any questions on this. But, so for instance, a construction site, you do have to have a plan, how you're going to control stormwater runoff during the construction phase, how it's going to be controlled, you know, long-term. We don't want developments that are going to generate flooding issues for the surrounding area. But the stormwater permit also covers things like pollution. So for instance, we just had to, a requirement was to educate Anderson County staff on what gets into the stormwater system. Cigarette butts, you don't want to pour oil into the stormwater drains. People look at that as if, well, you know, that's a place to pour liquid, I'm going to put it there, but it ends up in our waterways. And so we're actually having to train staff that are going to go on to the My Benefits channel. We did have some employees actually push back against that. And, you know, it's not something that we really have a say in. We're required to do that. So it covers a broad base of things. It's from the pollution to going out and looking at particular sites that might have, like fleet service or highway department. We're required to go out there and make sure under our permit that we're documenting an inspection and that they're properly disposing of their chemicals, that these things are not ending up as some kind of discharge into the system somehow.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, before we go too much further down this road, do we have a motion? Commissioner Smallridge moves to approve item number 18.
Yes.
Just do that individually.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Foster. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Commissioner Wandale.
So, I assume we're increasing, Robbie, 121-21555.
Well, just to, since that budget amendment came out, audit has changed the way we are doing budget amendments this year for ARP funding, and we tried to do it. That is incorrect. So we're increasing revenue 47901, and that's the change to the top part. The second part is correct, but it's actually increasing the revenue. That is how the budget amendment's going to go.
Okay, so do we have a correct amendment in front of us?
You don't. I have a correct one in front of me, but you don't, because I changed it since I sent the.
The only reason I'm
agenda.
asking is both items are circled, increase, decrease.
Yeah, because it came in as a decrease with the 101. I put 121-21555 because that's what me and Randy had discussed with audit, and we thought we were supposed to do. We've since learned we're not doing that. We're doing 121-47901. Then we have to do a journal entry. I got to be honest with you, Tracy, this stuff changes so often for us.
No,
I
that's-
mean,
that's-
it's a
no.
guessing game for
Yeah.
these.
Well, I mean, I guess, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have the corrected version submitted to the agenda.
I'd always I correct it before it comes out to commission, always.
Okay, but I guess my concern, Robbie, is if we vote on this amendment in front of us, number 18,
Mhm.
18 here is 1212155. You with me?
Right.
I mean,
We're-
I hear what you're saying, but for the minutes, we're
Yes.
passing this.
Oh, definitely will be the.
So, I mean, I'd prefer to add that to the agenda as item, whatever you left off at, I don't know what the last one is, in place of number 18.
You want to do a brand?
I'm not gonna vote yes on this one because it's not correct, right?
Well, all you're voting yes on, Tracy, is you're approving the budget amendment to spend the $103,060. Honestly, audit, you're not voting on the amendment for the code, you're approving the funding for the particular project. That, even if it was a mistake, I could correct that later, just to be honest, but I can do it if, I can't get you one right now, but the correction is 121,47901 in the first part.
Then maybe we can have the maker of the motion change it to when the amendment is corrected to the proper codes, then I'll support
I
it.
agree.
So for the record, Commissioner Smallridge, in committee, I guess we're a little bit more loose with the rules. The maker of the motion can change their motion to reflect that the approval is for a 121,479.01.
47901, just one number.
The second was made by Commissioner Foster. Are you okay with that being your second? So now the motion on the floor is to approve 121,479.01. And please let the minutes reflect that that was the dollar amount that's on the floor for vote. Is that
Or-
satisfactory?
And that's increasing that code,
Yes.
That is correct.
still coming out of the other code?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
And I wanted to explain on that,
Good idea.
that the handout that I gave you all, with the 4 pages I gave you, or 5, that were separate from the agenda. The first page is for ARPA projects, and the very top 2 or 3 lines is kind of a brief, what we spent so far, the revenue loss, the $10,000, $10 million we have in revenue loss, we spent $5,813,877, and we have $4,186,122.68 left. The other is the $4.9 million is the non-revenue loss, which we have more restrictions on. We spent we've budgeted $2,967,735.31. We haven't spent near this amount of money yet, but you all have approved projects funding these, approved that funding, and that leaves 1.9 million, 1,984,338. That 103,000 would come out of the 1,984,338.69. I just wanted to make that. That's why I put that back there. This is I had this in the agenda, but we since made some corrections since that agenda went out, because we found out some of our funding for some of our projects that we had taken out of the 10 million could come out of the other side, so we moved it over. Because we get, like I said, this stuff changes a lot, and it could change back, and we don't know, but right now, this is what we have, so.
Chairman, is there a way to get the breakdown, what's being come out of I know you at the top, you've got revenue loss and other, but down, like of these projects, is there a code that tells us which one it's coming out of, which pot it's coming out of?
Well,
Does my question make sense?
If you look at the extreme right column where it says revenue loss,
Okay,
if there's a no there, that means it's coming out of that
4 point, thanks.
And we did get this on the website also, this page. Somebody requested that, so it's actually on the finance page website now.
Commissioner Bochamp.
Robbie, can you say again how much money we have left in the ARPA funds? Because what we've got on here is totally different than what we
Yes,
got.
and I'm just explaining,
So I
we
just want
made,
to write it down for
okay.
myself to make
And it's
sure.
that page I handed you
The
out.
first one?
Yes,
This one?
yes, that's what we have left as of the changes we made this week.
Okay.
After I sent out the budget agenda on Tuesday. But we have $6,170,461.37. Of that 6 million, 4,186,122.68 is revenue loss, and 1,984,338.69 is the other. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? All right, thank you, Robin. Next item.
Okay,
We're on
19 through 21 are all from the mayor. The rest of them, I just wanted to take that first one individually because I knew it would be a little more complicated, but the next 3 are from the mayor's office. as well. For animal control, 3,500 increase in gasoline out of their restricted funds. $849.10 for the senior center out of unassigned fund balance for their phone system that was approved last year by commission. They're just now getting that set up, and they actually got a credit for that, so that's what they owe this year, and next year it'll be in the budget. And the last one is for $13,884.30 for other equipment for the animal shelter, for stuff such as white lighting only for animal control vehicles to address, to make them in compliance. $5,500 for outdoor night light camera catcher, light catcher camera and equipment and installation for the badge door system, and that will go to a new shelter that is able to transfer to a new shelter when and if one is built. And $6,947 for equipment, for equipping animal control officers with radios, antennas, and related equipment to advance communication with dispatch, as well as safety in field and remote areas. So those are the three from the sheriff, from the mayor's office: animal shelter and senior center.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Commissioner White moves to approve as a group. Commissioner White, or you want
Yes,
in
sir, all three, 19,
20 and 21?
yes, sir.
Commissioner White moves to approve items 19, 20, and 21. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Commissioner Smallridge. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay. Number 22 is from Annette Pruitt for County Commission. It is to pay for open meeting subscription fees for the voting system for January of '23 through June 30th of '23. $1,750 from unassigned fund balance.
Do
I
we
think
have a
that's-
motion?
So moved.
Commissioner White moves to approve item number 22. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Foster. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Commissioner Wandale.
What budget is this coming out of?
It's coming out of it's the county commission budget. It will be put into your budget and as an addition, an amendment to the county commission budget for your voting system that you use at county commission meetings, right, Ryan?
Yes, that's your voting tablets. The system has been bought out. Victor, who you all probably met at some of your conventions, has sold out earlier in the year to a bigger company. One of the other ones that are at the conventions bought him out. And it's been we had to buy half of a year last year to finish out the license with Victor. And at this point, Open Meeting has taken the role that at the end of this year, December 31st, our voting system no longer functions with the old system, and we have to move into Open Meeting, the new company that's here before you.
Does this system help with the minutes?
This will have a lot more features that allow us to do quite a few more things. I could get into a bunch of them, but there are quite a few more options. We can do agendas, we can do things of that nature with it, yes. There would need to be a person dedicated to probably entering a lot of that information, but it can be done with the new program.
The reason I'm asking, I think it's the responsibility of the clerk's office to make sure the minutes are documented properly. And I was just wondering if it needs to come out of that budget versus ours, because we don't have a very big budget for the commissioner's budget.
I'm not sure on that one, sir.
Well, I mean, I think he would have to do an amendment to his budget as well, but I think this is coming out of this budget because that's where it's came out of in the past, as far as for the tablets in the voting system for the commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Foster.
Is this a yearly fee that we'll pay?
I think this takes us to fiscal. This is
Okay.
a 6-month. It's probably double that for the year. I think
Okay.
this takes us through till the June 30.
Because I saw it coming out of unassigned fund balance. I just didn't know if we just didn't budget for it, or because there's two different companies, we didn't know the price. Is that,
I mean,
I don't know. Obviously, I wasn't here, but I was just wondering. We will have it in the budget next year. It's something that we will.
I
yearly
believe so.
cost.
We'll have a hard physical number. The number had altered from, it was going to be 750 for, that you all, well, it was 750 that you paid for the first half of this fiscal budget, but then the second half takes over with the new company, and that's this fee. So it's, you've already paid 750 for the first half. This takes you through to the end of the fiscal, if that's to answer your question.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried.
Okay, number 23 is a appropriation from the Law Director's Office. Back in the, a year ago or so, maybe 6 months, the commission approved Jay to pursue recovery lawsuits for 2 or 3 cases that had been settled with the county, and these are the legal fees. At first, it was $9,875.30. Jay has since then paid some of these bills, so now we only owe $5,032 for, that's all I'm asking for. I take these bills one at a time and bring them to you all, because in the past, that's how it's been suggested that I do it. So I try to, every time I get a legal bill, I bring it to commission and to the budget committee and commission for approval. There will be more.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion we approve this.
Commissioner White moves to approve item number 23. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Commissioner Smallridge. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
Robbie, I
White.
misunderstood what, I didn't follow you when you said we only owe 5 something now.
Well, the law director's budget has a $10,000 in the, in legal fees every year in a legal fee code, and we paid a portion of the bills, which actually, since I did the budget amendment on Tuesday, more bills came in. So, so far, we have paid $18,376.28, and we still owe $5,032 to this Miller legal.
So the law director's $10,000 budget is depleted.
Yes, and we need to pay.
Okay,
And
that's-
part of that, a portion of that 18,000 was paid out of last year, 9,422, so I don't want, that doesn't make sense when I say 10,000, we paid 18, but part of that was last year's funds. So we owe $5,032 currently
That's
to
sort of
this.
the way I understood it, but
Yes.
I didn't know for sure.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Commissioner Bochamp, I'm sorry. go ahead.
Robbie, are we paying this Miller legal firm to recover the money? Is
I
that the way I'm understanding that?
The way I understand it is, I'm not a lawyer, and Jay's not able to be here today, but we are trying to recoup some of the money that we lost with the lawsuits. It's a possibility that we could.
But we can't collect that on our own. We're paying another company to collect fees.
Yes.
That is ridiculous.
And it was approved by commission,
The history on that, Commissioner Bochamp, it was before your arrival. And I don't know how much we're allowed to talk about in open session without an executive session being called, but we're paying an attorney to sue an attorney to try to recoup funds that we had to spend, but we had no choice, so it's.
I still say that's
Yeah, there's many others that would agree with you on that, but unfortunately, that was the least worst option.
Chairman,
Commissioner Foster.
so, and maybe this is not the place to ask this, are we suing them to include this money that we're paying this firm to go after them? Like, when we're going for this recovery, does that question make sense? Like, is that included, is this 9,000 that we're paying out also included in what we go after, making them pay for our legal fees? Is that a different is that a
that would be more.
commission meeting?
J question.
Yes.
Okay.
And normally, I will say this.
It's a good one.
I don't put the invoices for the legal fees in the budget agenda just because of what they are, but I have been asked to email them to the budget committee before and commission, and I don't mind doing that at all. The ones I have, if you all would like to see them.
I would.
Okay, I will do that. I normally do that, and I will get that together. Well, it'll be Tuesday, but I'll get that together.
Commissioner Wandell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Robbie, these funds here that we're asking for, 5,000 or 9,000, what code is this the law director's code?
It is.
So it's within his own code?
Yes, I'm putting it, I gave it a cost center of recovery just so it's easier for me to keep up with those, because I have a feeling get a year and a half down the road, how much money have we spent on this so far, and it helps. I can pull that code really quick and let you all know we spent $25,000 or whatever.
So he's asking to increase a code and decrease a code within his own budget.
No, he's asking to increase 51400-331 RECOV, which is county attorney legal fees, recovery lawsuits, is what I've called it, for $5,032. We're decreasing unassigned fund balance, $4,279.15, and there was a small $752.85 in assigned for general government county attorney, which was the money that we enrolled into an assigned fund, and I'm just getting rid of that because it's just, we're carrying it every year, so I'm using that first, and then the rest from unassigned.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? I would remind the committee that if this motion doesn't pass, it will probably affect the route that we've chosen to take moving forward on this situation.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we do owe this invoice
Yeah.
already, so.
We probably already owe this.
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah, we already owe it.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
No.
Hand vote, please. All in favor, please let it be known by raising your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let the record reflect 6-1. Motion carries.
Okay. The next budget amendment I have is from me, Finance, for the Charter Commission. We're increasing printing for Charter Commission, $12,523, and rentals for $17. And decreasing unassigned fund balance, $8,540, and legal services in Charter, $4,000, because we already had that money in there, we're not using it, so I'm moving it to the other codes to pay for the mail-out that went out, the printing and the mail-out that went out for the charter for the election. So $12,540. Also, year-to-date, I ran some numbers. Since we started the charter, I think Jay told me that when it was first mentioned, that they were trying to stay under $50,000 spending for the charter. Year-to-date, counting this, we spent $44,442 for charter.
What was the total again?
$44,442.10 to be exact.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Commissioner Smallridge moves to approve item number 24. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner White. Any discussion? Commissioner Wandale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Robbie, I think I heard you say that 44,000 includes the 12.
That does include this last
Did-
payment.
In the 44, does it have all the attorney's fees in there too?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
And any, we paid Annette for work going to the charter meetings. I think Jay acted like that in commission, that you all approved the spending for this printout and up to so much money, but I couldn't find it in commission because I listened for it, so I wanted to make sure that it was approved in budget committee. So,
I don't recall voting for it.
yeah, I couldn't find a vote, but
Seemed like I recall something about printing fees or something, but not enough to give a good explanation of it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
No.
Let's go for a hand vote. All in favor, let it be known by raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let the record reflect, motion passes 6-1.
okay, and the last budget amendment I have is one that we set up last year in the Finance Committee. We made a motion from Finance to dedicate 20% of the general fund's rollover money every year, move it into a sign code. Last year, we moved $1,026,000 This year, our rollover wasn't as much, but it's 580,868. That would be moving to assigned for capital projects. The current balance of that, 34785, is $3,026,060. If we add this to it, we'd have $3,606,928, which would be, it's an assigned for capital projects, kind of like a rainy day fund or emergency fund.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Foster moves to approve item number 25. Do we have a second?
Second
Second by Commissioner Smallridge.
question.
Any discussion? Commissioner Smallridge.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, Robbie, this, going back to the cash and fund balance, under assigned funds, there's $3,131,424, and we're adding I'm sorry, you've changed it with a new $3,026,000, and then we're adding $580,000, which is the rollover amount from last year's budget.
That's
Is
20%
that
of the,
correct?
20% of the
And none of
rollover.
that it's designated, we don't have to use it for that, but it's, right now it's designated for capital outlay.
That is correct, because commission
we
could
have
change
not-
that at any time.
And we
yes.
have not expended any of that,
No,
okay, I just wanted to
since we've been
clarify.
doing this. We've probably done this is our third year now, I think. I think the first year we set aside probably 2 million, then $1 million last year, and then 580,000 this year. So,
Got a question.
Mhm.
So what's the process of using money out of that? Is it?
it would have to be a budget committee, a budget amendment,
Okay.
For
and
a
commission,
capital need.
commission approval.
So is there a standard that's a I mean, you don't use the sheriff's office, we took that out of the fund balance. Could that have come out of this capital project?
It could
Okay.
have.
I just didn't know if there's a threshold that it has to meet and/or a
Well-
vote 12 to,
In the assigned funds, this is the lowest form of restriction we have. So honestly, you all could change this. You could move this 3 million. If you wanted to, let's just say, buy a piece of property, you could use this money. If somebody made a motion and commission approved it, it could be spent for that. So it can be changed. I mean, it's just. we're
no, I
putting
think
it-
it's a great thing to
putting it
have
aside.
this growing on the side, but
Right.
I just didn't know we had this available. I don't know if we can keep up with it. I know it obviously is pretty new in the last few years, but if we do spend money out of it, I just think something like the sheriff's, when we did that, that would have been a good place to take that money out of more than the fund balance. So I just didn't know we even had that code, and that's lack of my knowledge, so I apologize.
No, that's fine. Well, it doesn't come up once a year, so.
Okay.
One of the stipulations when we started this, it was more for one-time expenditures, brick and mortar, not necessarily for vehicles that we're still paying a note and the vehicle has been blown up, 2 years ago or whatever. So other than what Director Holbrook has spoken to us about, it was more about building projects more than anything else, was our thought when we started it.
I think
Any further discussion? Commissioner Wandale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Robbie, these funds are under, as Commissioner Smallridge, I think, alluded to, it's under the assigned funds?
Yes, sir.
And where are those assigned funds parked financially?
Like in a bank?
Okay, I mean, with a trustee? or-
Yes,
okay.
yes, sir. All are in the main bank account, yeah. In the cash,
No restrictions on it, can be pulled out at any time?
only by commission, yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Commissioner
Sorry.
Foster?
Just looking at the budget, like the assigned fund balance, 171, is that code, or is that a different capital
That's
project?
capital projects fund. We put some of the property tax in it.
Okay,
It's a different
so it's a
code.
different fund.
It's in 101 under the assigned funds, and it does have a 3,131,424. There are other assignments in that besides this one, because this one right now is only $3,026,060, but there's a couple of other funds or restrictions in there that make up this committed funds. And any of these restricted funds, restricted, committed, or assigned, all our appropriations all have to have commission's full approval to move any money out of that. So there's no way to do that without commission approval. And that is one thing audit always, we pull all these every year. They look to see that it was approved in commission, and we pulled the minutes for a lot of these, so.
Mayor Frank?
I just was going to provide a little further background to, for Commissioner Foster. So going back many years ago in Budget Committee, at that time, I guess you looked at 2011, the fund balance was, I think at one point it was even down to 111,000 or 116,000 or something like that. It was very, very low. And so for a while, it took us a while to get up over $1 million. And so what we discovered is one of the tools Roane County was using was they would take an average of 5 years of their rollover and use part of just a percentage of that rollover to either meet some budget gaps or for capital needs. And so what we decided to do was start doing that, track that 5-year average. And the county, Anderson County, did not have a capital fund. And so everything was having to just come out of the unassigned fund balance. And so then as our unassigned fund balance started to grow and become healthier, one of the things the Finance Committee looked at doing was, let's go ahead and start setting that aside and get out of the borrowing process and start building this up to where you can get into a position where you pay as you go or if you have needs. And there have been many years where we're in the budget process, and every year during the budget process, various departments submit their capital needs. We need a new building, or we need new ambulances or sheriff's cruisers, whatever the capital needs are. And what Budget Committee would do was, this was under Chairman White and Chairman Val, would balance the budget and then delay looking at those capital needs. Let's take care of the government, what our needs are, make sure our employees are paid, and then we'll look at those capital needs with what our rollover is. And so it's been a good process because you've built the fund balance, then you've been able to grow. I mean, it's been a lot of wisdom by this commission, and you've just gotten yourself, you're looking at your cover sheet there, in a much better position doing it that way. And so a lot of times the sheriff or Nathan, I'm just going to use them as examples, Robbie would say, here's what we have in rollover this year that's unspent. And then the Budget Committee would, once that budget's passed, once they got the audit finals, they would look at that rollover and say, we've got enough to buy these items this year. And now a lot of the things that you have done with the ARP money is buy those needs that you already have, and you're really putting the county in a much stronger financial position because you're developing this fund and you're using the ARP money for infrastructure, for capital needs, for hard assets. And so it's really, you're really doing a good job with what you're doing here. So I thought I'd give you a little more background on how we got from there to here.
I appreciate it. No, I think it's a good plan. I'm glad that that's automatic rollover. I think it's a good idea.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried.
Okay. Moving to our section portion, the first thing I have on the agenda is the IT multi-factor plan. Brian sent out an email earlier before budget meeting, and I made a copy of it. He also made a copy of the policy, and so you all have that before you. I'm gonna let him speak to this. Part of the, when we approved $150,000 out of ARP funding for the multi-factor, I think me, myself included, and the Budget Committee and Commission thought it would just be for more purchase of like capital needs, like buying what we need, what we had to have to do the multi-factor, but I didn't realize an employee would be needed. I never thought of it. Honestly didn't know. So Brian's developed more of a plan now, so I wanted him to bring that to commission to get it approved before, so we can move the funding to the proper places.
Good evening.
Director Young.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to bring this before you, a few, I guess earlier back in this, before fiscal, back last year, we were approached by Tennessee, and I may not be saying this right, our insurer, Tennessee Risk Management, okay, and other stuff there. Basically, as a result of their request, the industry IT is moving, and the insurers that are insuring the companies with IT computers in all their systems, which is everyone, are being hit with crypto attacks, and they're paying out and they're spending. Our insurers are losing money due to the fact that crypto attacks are costing them. And one of the ways to help prevent those types of attacks is multi-factor authentication. So our insurance providers are asking for this. HR and I got our heads together to see, are there any policies out there? Do we have anything written about MFA? No was the answer. I approached the state. We didn't have a lot there. I've approached different counties. I've asked around different groups that I know. Nobody actually had a policy, so it looks like it was pen to paper. So I wrote out this policy. I've had Kim go through it. We've changed quite a few things. This is probably the third revision. I put it before the IT Advisory Committee. It was in this fiscal. I'm pretty sure it was August, I think, late August, might have been September's meeting. But we were going to meet again after I had the policy. But this last meeting, we didn't have many people show, so I just decided to bring it directly to you. But this is the policy we believe we've developed. To make this occur, it's not a big financial purchase of one fiscal item or a fiscal something. It's multiples and this all comes down to depending on what our independent departments decide they want to use for their staff. So I'll just use the YubiKey. It is an industry standard. A lot of different companies across the United States and around the globe are using it. YubiKey is sort of like a dongle that you might swipe to get in a door. But in this situation, it will have a USB that you will pull off and plug into your computer, and or different variations of that, so that when you get to your computer or you go into your email, that must exist in the computer or your email won't open up. That's one way to do that. There's other ways where the military, Army, Milnet, those groups, they use a card, like a credit card that you slide in, and you have a little card holder on your desk, and you slide the card in there before you access your computer. So I listed, I think, in here 6 different ways that we can do this. So I don't think that's, from our advisory committee, we didn't get into splitting the hairs on how exactly we're going to do it, but the expense will be those little devices. So they average between 80 for the high end a piece, probably lower end in the 40s a piece, $40 each. So if we're looking at adding, for instance, the sheriff would need around 200. I think on the courthouse side, we're looking at 240. There's, all in all, it could be as many. I think Kim and I had up to 500 plus that we will be needing. That's a significant purchase. Part of that $150,000 grant, we can use those types of things to purchase with that money. That was part of what I'd like to earmark that purchase with when we get to that point. But there are still some developmental parts of this that the department heads, we have to have another meeting with the advisory committee to zero in on which method that department will use. And I can basically do it 3 different ways is the way it's probably going to end up being. There are some polishing still to do with this. But to not go too crazy with this, this is my idea to not only fix this MFA for the Tennessee Risk Management. I've got the ARP money. What can I do with this as the director? Looking to the future at knowing what plans I'm seeing that this committee's possibly heading towards and some of the choices that are being made, I think it's probably due that I go ahead and with this MFA bring a person in to handle and assist all of those, just like you have a sergeant over at the, or a deputy over at the sheriff with your badges, and when you come in the building or whatever, how you get in, your access badge, that system is maintained by a person that is busy. But then I have more to do when this person isn't just doing the MFA work, multi-factor. So I actually have needs myself to keep another person busy. So this kind of balances my department as well as adds the MFA. We have the grant money as part of that. But as Robbie and I were discussing when we showed up for the meeting, we basically can do this now, or I think we could plan, that money will run down. And at that point, MFA will still need to continue. So I don't know if we do some type of process to put money future for that. But these are the things I'm asking, and it's open for discussion too. I don't want to be rigid with any of this because we all have to operate under a multi-factor per our insurer and the globe the way it's going. So I just want to open that up for discussion amongst this group too, because I didn't get to go deep with my committee.
Any discussion or questions for Director Young? Commissioner Smart.
I wasn't clear. You mentioned a grant. The grant funds are,
The ARP, there's money, if I'm saying that right, Randy, set aside earmark.
Grant, it's 150 of the ARP allocation was, it's the second to the last item.
oh, it's already
Yes, sir.
budgeted.
Yeah, what he's based, yes,
Okay. And how much was that?
150.
150.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting, and I went clear, each department would decide on the type of multi-factor? or-
We have, to make it easier, we have 3 different ways we can do it because we have 3 different email systems. We have the TNA CSO with the sheriff, that is their email system. We have the courthouse, which is andersoncountytn.gov, and then we have the courts, which is andersoncourts.org. So those 3, what the industry calls a tenant, those 3 tenants can have different methods of multi-factor authentication. So we don't have to say that it's going to be the YubiKey for all 3. And I'll say this, the sheriff's department by far and large want to use the YubiKey system. They've explained well what they would like to have. But those other 2, the courts and then the courthouse, do not have to use that same method. So that's, I think, another meeting for the advisory committee. But we could bring that back to you once those department heads give me their input as a group, if that answers your question.
One last.
Yes, sir.
Does this require additional people in your department, you're saying?
That's where I'm asking for a part-time, 29-hour a week for MFA, but then I will have that person doing a great deal of other things when MFA isn't happening. But then part of where I'm asking, Kobe Melton, and speaking on the blending of helping this department be a little more robust, is in IT, the single point of failure is what we can't allow. There can't be one of this item or one of that item, because if one of that fails, you all go down, and 911 doesn't work, or this process doesn't work. I can't live with those things. That's what I have to stop from happening. But with me, there's not a single point of failure issue, or as far as, I don't have anyone. If this brain, if anything happens to me, there's no one that can take up the lead. I had a sheriff deputy that I was working with who left the department, that I was heading in that direction. We were working really well with an assistant, type of an assistant process with each other. Since I no longer have that as an option, I'm looking from within my own staff. My young staff, Kobe Melton, who has come on with me, he's showing great, enormous strides in his abilities technically. He's shocking me. I've been doing this 28 years, and he reminds me of myself. He's very good at what he's doing. He's learning. He's like a sponge, and I want to keep him. So part of this is, if you'll, in what I'm saying here, I'm trying to bring him up. I'm bringing a raise for him and a part-time for the MFA. And Kobe will be fully in charge of MFA. It's going to be his main role. I'm going to pull him off of the help desk and doing daily tickets, no longer day-to-day tickets. It will be, he focuses on MFA and administrative assistant to me on IT nerd work, not paperwork, as far as the IT knowledge part of the servers and knowing what they are, how to get to the systems. If something I can't be available or I can't if something happens to me personally, that this county has not a single point of failure in Bryan. So that's basically it. I could go on, but if there's any questions, I hope it makes sense.
Any further discussion?
At some point, you'll bring us back a comprehensive proposal
I'm working,
with cost and everything, right?
So Director Young, if I'm understanding correctly, what you're asking for here today is a motion to approve using the ARP money that's already been allotted for your department to be able to give the pay raise for Colby,
For Kobe,
and then
correct.
to also be able to hire a part-time employee,
To bring on a part-time.
and that would be a total cost of what?
That's,
Around close to $40,000. for
40,000?
part-time. Yes, that's benefits and salary,
Okay,
a year. And that's why I wanted Brian to bring it before. I mean, we can use ARP funding for some of this right now, but this will eventually be
it will run
a
out.
reoccurring cost that
for
needs
the
to be
county.
added
so-
to your
And that
budget.
needs to be approved by this committee and
All right.
commission.
So with that understanding, do we have a motion?
40,000 is for,
I don't, I mean, that
No,
would be for a
40.
part-time position
for the
and the
raise
increase,
and the
yes.
part-time
Up
position.
to 40. I don't know that it'll cost us that much.
No, we're still, some of this is a little bit, we don't have the exact numbers yet. If I'm making sense in that. Don't have a person hired yet.
Commissioner White moves to approve
Up to 40,000.
up to $40,000 for the IT department to be able to move. Is Colby already full-time?
Yes.
He's full-time.
Okay, to increase that salary and to also hire a part-time for a total up to
Okay.
$40,000. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Wandell. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Commissioner Wandell.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask, I'm trying to understand, so, Brian, your department, you report into the mayor, is that right? Or?
No, I point to IT Advisory Committee, and then the IT Advisory Committee reports to the commission. My top line is commission.
Okay, thank you. And so you're gonna move forward, this motion was for just the funds for the 40,000 to have this multi-factor person in place, right?
Correct. The assistant to the multi-factor, and then bring Kobe into the multi-factor coordinator. That's what his new position will be called. And it's multi-factor and identity administration coordinator.
Then the 150,000 we allocated from the ARP funds, those are gonna be used for the 3 entities you said.
The key, but it'll only use a smaller portion of that, so there'll be a large amount left of that money.
Okay,
So he was gonna use the 150,000 for the payroll and the multi-factor purchases until that runs out. Then what I wanted y'all to know that would be a county expense after that.
It's not an additional 40.
okay, so that,
150 these.
so we're not adding 40, he's just, so I guess Commissioner White's motion is to use 40 of the 150 for his request. But wouldn't he do that internally himself anyway? I mean, how he's gonna use that money, or?
Well, we kind of set it aside as a code to purchase multi-factor
Oh, okay. gotcha.
capital
I got you.
needs.
Makes
And
sense.
I wanted you all to know that it was gonna be used, which I didn't know at that time it would be payroll. And so I thought it needed more approval, in my opinion.
I want to, you know, you don't have to tell me now, but I'd like to know, you know, all 3 of those entities you mentioned, the justice, I call it, the courts and internally, and then I guess the sheriff's department, are all of them going to go under this?
Yes.
You're going to manage all of that for all of them?
Absolutely.
Okay, and they're all in agreement with that?
Total. I'm doing every bit of that. All of the departments know that we're going to do the MFA, the sheriffs, Owens, and the different ones I've worked with, they know what we're doing.
And they're all in favor of it, I guess is my question.
Yeah, I don't think we get much of a choice in
I was
it.
gonna say, we don't really have much of a choice, and I think this is something that will go with our personnel policy when an employee's hired, that you, sorry, there's a gnat in here.
It is, it's flying around.
All over me.
He's dive bombing.
We
Yeah,
know,
we'll have
we
to
know a
sign-
good guy in the
I
firm.
know, apparently. We'll have to, you know, an employee will have to sign off on this, that they agree to this, or they probably can't be employees, the way I would manage.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wandell brings up a good point. I guess technically, you don't even need a motion to pass from this committee to do what you're asking to do.
But I
What you're
want-
wanting to do is put on notice to this committee that at some point, this may be something we do have to vote on to increase your budget to cover it.
What's that? Yes, when that is gone, I'll be
Okay.
approaching you for that at that date, which
Right.
I'm.
So a vote here
40,000.
today that passes pretty much is just us endorsing
Yes,
your decision.
that's what I'm after.
You don't need our approval to do it at this point. You're just asking for our blessing in order to do it.
I'd rather have all of
I
that.
got you.
And that you all are
I
aware,
got you.
aware of that.
Okay.
so. I wanted to be
you.
transparent.
My committee did not show up. There was all kinds of different issues, so I didn't want to come into this without my committee's approval. So without that, I wanted to come forward here and say that this is what my plans and the goal are for this department going forward with
And to
MFA.
Commissioner Wandale's point, if you had been able to get this passed by your committee, then that would have answered his question of,
Yes,
is everybody okay with this?
Right.
Okay, I got it.
Well, and I don't want you to show up 2 years later and increase his budget
I get it.
$50,000. And y'all are asking me why, and I said, oh, we've already been doing this.
I get it. So now that that is clarified, the motion on the floor still stands unless the maker of the motion has changed his mind. Okay. Any further discussion?
Chairman.
Commissioner Smallridge?
Looking down the road, when the funds run out for the grant, the financial impact on the, what we would have to pick up as a county would be just the personnel, pretty much.
Yeah, that would be the personnel, and then, in this policy, if the items are damaged or not returned from a staff that leaves us, or, something of that nature was lost, we're not asking, I don't believe, for full replacement there, but we're asking a good portion of that be paid by the employee who would lose it or not bring it back or return it. So we hope to get some funds back to help on that. But the initial first purchase with a new hire, that funds would be for that purchase of that $40 or $60 item, depends on the model we end up buying.
Commissioner Foster?
And so the 150 originally, when they designated that to them, there wasn't like, hey, this is for, we just said, here's 150,000 IT. Okay.
That was designated for multi-factor authentication.
Yes.
Details of what that would look like.
At that time.
And this is kind of grown, it's still.
We're way ahead at this point with MFA. I think we're about to set a standard when this is passed, because I don't see it anywhere else. And it's being pushed by the insurance agencies. And it seems like this county ends up being in the past, with the software that was developed in the 80s and the 90s, that we've been, I don't know why we've set the standard nationwide with a lot of the counties following us on our software, but this MFA policy, I couldn't get it anywhere else, so.
Yeah, we still found 2 cans in a string tied between them down there in jail from time to time. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Section B is from EMS, from Nathan Sweet. He sent out an email to the Budget Committee requesting $381,874.78 in ARP funds for capital needs. That has since increased to $398,409. And I'm Nathan, I already see him out of the corner of my eye standing here, so I'll let him talk about it.
Director Sweet?
Yes, sir. So this was follow-up from last month, last budget committee. It was put on hold. We did draft the email. We withdrew our request for the cardiac monitors with the explanation that we didn't need them yet. But we wanted to follow through with our stretcher request. So this is that request. It's the request of 12 stretchers and all the equipment, the batteries and such that go with them.
For a total cost of how much?
I believe it's $398,904,
409.
$409.
$398,409.
Yes.
And just to clarify, I think you said it, but just to clarify, this is a request to use the ARP funds for this purchase?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Commissioner White moves to approve the EMS department request of $398,409 for stretchers to be drawn from the ARP funds. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Smallridge. Any discussion? Commissioner Bochamp.
Nathan, have you got with the new grant writer to see if you can get grants for any of this stuff? Because I know with COVID and all this stuff going on, there's so many things available for EMS, fire, and all this. So I want to make sure that we're using all of our resources that are available before we start trying to get ARP money. So have you gotten with the new grant writer yet to see if he can find grants for these stretchers?
No, I have not met with the new grant writer yet. I do know that we have looked for some grants in the past, and there's really not that many for EMS. The biggest one that you might think of would be the AFG, the Assistance to Firefighters grants. When they come out with what they want you to apply for, they have criteria. And usually you're not seeing the stretchers as a main criteria for that. That being said, although EMS can apply for it, most of the awards go to fire departments because it's an assistant to firefighter grants. I know we did, and part of this body, county commission, set up a resolution in support of the legislation that's being introduced at the federal level to designate 50 million to be used for EMS and for grants. But of course, that's still in legislation. We have tried applying for grants in the past. Honestly, what it takes to apply for some of those big grants, my department just can't handle. We do hope in the future that we can work with the county grant person and pursue those, absolutely.
I think now's the time to do that instead of us appropriating this or giving you this money out of the ARP money. That's what he's here for, is for grants. And I think there is going to be grants available, and I would like to see you. I know last month that you presented us with a huge list of things. I would like to see you get with him and see what he could get available for your department, so we don't have to keep doing this every month.
Oh, we definitely want to pursue grants. I think that's going to be an incredible strategy and opportunity. They all do have a time and a window. It's very competitive. We have tried in the past. The AFG grant myself, I've applied 4 times, I believe. I didn't receive any of those at that time. But I do agree, grants is a great resource and opportunity. Again, unfortunately, there are not that many for EMS, especially for items like this at this price. But if they're out there, we will more than happy to pursue those and take a look at those. I know we got a Tennessee Risk Management grant earlier this year for $20,000, replace stair chairs with that. So we'll continue to work on grants for sure.
I got something for the mayor.
Go ahead.
Mayor, when we passed this through, that resolution, I think it was last month, maybe the month before, how soon do you think legislature's gonna bring this up as far as what we put through?
The resolution that you did was for federal legislation, so we did get that resolution sent to Congressman Fleischman as well as Senators Haggerty and Blackburn. And then we also, I did a cover letter to Senator Lee and then a separate one to Lieutenant Governor McNally asking if the state legislature would consider. In fact, one of the sentences I put in there is I appreciate the governor's $100 million for law enforcement, and I believe General Clark's actually going to speak about that under new business. And then they have opened up grants for volunteer fire departments, and they've done that in the last few years. But as I referenced in the letter, EMS is often the forgotten first responder agency. And I don't know if it's because there are private and public EMS agencies out there, and maybe that's kind of created some anxiety with legislative bodies, where they don't want to fund. But this federal plan, they are working it to where it can provide equipment for both private and public. And so we're hoping maybe that the governor might entertain that in this legislative session, but I have not heard any response. We have asked this in the past. In fact, in Anderson County, we put together a regional meeting where Nathan and I hosted at the health department, meetings for 8 counties, the mayors, the EMS directors. On the white sheets, we put, here's, let's try for this. We, and Nathan especially, has been a vital part of increasing revenues for EMS with these kicker payments that you've heard him reference. A lot of that was Nathan working with TennCare on that particular idea and getting that initiated. So we're always out there. I also want to explain on Mr. Prince and the grant side. We've got open dialogue with the finance on grants, and I keep checking in with Robbie and Randy. Tell us when we can unleash the Kraken and get to your man, because they're having to bring him up to speed on the compliance, the bookkeeping, how we submit the invoices for reimbursement. He's coming from California. Tennessee systems are different. So Randy and Robbie have been like, give us time, let us get him, before we start getting out there searching for new grants, let us get him up to speed. So we're just kind of waiting for when they give us the go, and we'll look for more. But to Nathan's point, I'm constantly looking. There's just not a lot on the EMS side, and we've got to do more to raise awareness that when the public dials 911, they're expecting us to come, and it's not about just speed, it's about bringing a mobile ER. And so, I'm going to use your resolution and share it with other counties and ask them to do the same thing, and maybe we can get some attention at the state level.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Foster.
The $5,000 for maintenance, that's just a one-time fee. How many years does that cover? Like the repair and on-site,
I believe it's 5-year.
5-year?
Any further discussion?
I just,
Commissioner Smallridge.
stretchers, when I think of a stretcher, I think of something, you put somebody on that needs to be transported, simple, but these are really expensive. What makes these so costly, I guess?
So they're power cots. So they have a motor system, hydraulic system to raise them up, lower them down. A lot of it is they can hold 750 pounds. So you have a heavy-duty frame. I agree. When I started, it was manual. We raised it and lowered it ourselves. It was a 2-person. Wasn't the old 1-person, but it was a manual stretcher. But it has, we changed, actually my predecessor moved us into power cots over 13 years ago. So that's a big part of it. Batteries is a part of it. So you got electrical system, hydraulic system, heavy duty frame system on it, and that adds up.
Any further discussion?
I got one more.
Commissioner Bochin.
Nathan, did you not need this stuff? Did you put this in the original budget and it got denied? Or I'm just wondering why it's being requested now, since I wasn't on when we approved the budgets.
So we do not put capital purchases in our operating budget. We do not. I do not remember on 5-year capital outlay what all was included on there. So I do not remember if it was on there. I'd have to look that back up. Usually we'll have stretchers separated or cardiac monitors. I've even got generators in there because none of our ambulance stations have emergency backup power. So we lose power, we lose power. That does play some issues. I've had that on my 5-year capital outlay for a number of years now. So honestly, we do put a lot of our equipment on those budget documents that we submit each year.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no.
No.
Let's go to a hand vote, please. All in favor, please let it be known by the raising of the right hand. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Commissioner White, are you a yes vote still? the sixth. All in favor, raise your right hand, or I'm sorry, all opposed, raise your right hand.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Let the record reflect, motion passes 6-1.
Mr. Chairman, how's that at ARP funds?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Director Sweet.
So the last thing I have on the section portion is the fire truck resolution, which I'm gonna let Chairman Val handle, since he is the chairman of the fire commission.
So Commissioners, to bring you up to speed on this, for years, we have had what we call the fire truck resolution. What that does is give money to each fire department, or let me take that back. We actually purchased for each fire department a fire engine, and we had a list that we went by. So when it first began, and Robbie, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, each year, a fire department in our county would receive a new fire truck. And we had a resolution that outlined the criteria for them to receive the fire truck, what they expected of us, what we expected of them. As it went on, times got hard. We as a body came back and said, okay, we're gonna cut it down to every other year, and then the next department in line would get one. That's the way it's been for a while. We have recently completed the list that we went by. So when that occurred, the question then arose, now what do we do? Do we continue the resolution as is? Do we go back to the original, we're gonna fund a department's fire engine each year, since times, the Lord's blessed us, times have gotten a little better? Or one of the ideas was, especially when the ARP money came on the scene, was do we buy every fire department an engine at one time, then end the resolution? Do we end the resolution altogether? All these options were discussed. They were discussed especially at the Fire Commission. The Fire Commission consists of currently myself, Commissioner Beauchamp, and each fire department in the county represented by their fire chief or a designee. The rescue squad is also represented on that fire committee. So they have gotten together after discussing all of the options, and here is their proposal at this point. They want us to continue the fire truck resolution, funding one fire truck per department a year, as it was originally intended. This draft that the Fire Commission, in conjunction with the Law Director's Office, has written has changed the amount to $380,000, and that increased from $275, I think.
Well, the allocation this year in the budget was 135,813, so
But times that
by two.
by two.
About
okay.
270, yeah.
So, and the reason they did that was they knew the cost of fire trucks has grown astronomically, just like everything else. So their proposal at this time is they are requesting that we approve this resolution that you have in front of you that was sent out on Monday, I believe, with that increase really being the only change, I believe. The list of departments are listed in there, so if we pass this, and full commission passes, it would start with the Bryceville Volunteer Fire Department, continue down. The rest of the stipulations, I believe, have stayed as is, especially the one that indicates that each volunteer fire department is required to respond to emergencies as first responders. That will assist EMS in their calls. That has been left in the resolution. I, for one, like that stipulation in the resolution. And then, if we so choose, conversations still continue on using the ARP money possibly for a further purchase of however many more fire trucks to the rest of the fire departments that are on this list, if we so choose. The Fire Commission was concerned that the ARP funds would soon be depleted, and they would not have had an opportunity for us to have purchased them a bulk purchase. So this, as a safety net, they would like for us to consider passing it tonight, and then in the near future, decide what other ARP funds may be used. The new vice chair of the Fire Commission is Chief Justin Bailey from the Oliver Springs Fire Department. He had planned on being here today, but texted me and said that he was gonna be unable to attend. So I'm sorry to have to be the one to try to explain all this, and if I've confused anybody, I will try to unconfuse you as much as I can. But that is what's being presented to the Budget Committee at this time, to go ahead and approve this resolution to be sent on to full commission for final approval. So that
One-
is the proposal on the table.
One change I see too in it is that we're cutting it, we would be writing a check to the volunteer fire department, and they would be purchasing the vehicle
Okay.
instead of the county.
Us purchasing.
Going through an RFP with the county and the bid through the
Okay.
purchasing department, and we writing the check to the vendor
Okay.
is a big change in the
Yeah,
resolution.
that came up, Commissioners, during the consideration of a bulk purchase.
Right.
The volunteer fire departments, and some of them don't know all the bureaucracy that goes along in purchasing, but they thought we could just approve that, I think was it $11 million, Robbie?
Yeah. I think
Somewhere along in there, to purchase all those at one time by a particular company. They didn't realize the rules said something like that had to be bid out. It may not be the company that two or three of the departments wanted. It may have been whatever company came in with the best bid. So by doing it this way, where we're actually cutting the check and giving it to them, they can handle all that. Is that correct?
Yes, I
Okay.
just want to make sure. I think that this is, I mean, I do think we need a resolution, or the commission wants to, if this is what they want to do, but I'm not sure this is the resolution. I would maybe, me and the mayor discussed it today, maybe even forming a committee of some commissioners, some fire chiefs, and the mayor, and maybe seeing the direction. I mean, I don't know what direction commission wants to go in. I would like for, I don't know if Jay helped write this, but I would like for him to review the resolution. I do think it's something we could get worked out before budget, which is when we have to have it worked out for anyway, before we pass the next budget. So, I'm not sure it's ready to be passed tonight, in my opinion. So.
Just for the record, a copy of it was emailed to Jay for his review. I don't know if he got back to let us know if he thought it was okay or not. He was the original drafter of it. If y'all would indulge me just for a second.
He hadn't responded to, I was on that email, so I didn't, well, you sent it to me.
Yeah, he just said, okay, thanks, that he had received it, so we haven't gotten an answer back. Commissioner White?
I just said, I don't think we ought to jump too quick on this.
Okay.
That's a lot of money, big commitment. And right now, we're looking good, but let's play it close to the best we can.
Okay. Commissioner Vandergriff?
I did have a question about the fire truck that was just purchased for Andersonville. Do you know what the final cost of that was? I realize that things are going to go up in price, but do you know what the final cost of that was?
I know they had to raise some money on their own to make up the difference for the engine that they got. I'm not
And
sure the
they-
dollar amount.
That's my first question. Second question was, and they went through the bid process through the
Yes,
county, correct?
They did. They did. The final cost, let's see, I might have that right. I don't. I know our allocation was 135.18. It was similar to that the year before, 135.18, so that's 271. We gave that much towards the purchase. I think they did have to raise some, it was more than that, because like the cost has gone up obviously for those, for a fire truck. But I can get that for you and email it to you.
I'd like to know how much the final cost was and
Sure.
how much did they have to pay.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they increased the cost in this. I think moving forward, as of right now today, the 380 would cover the entire cost. And I think that's one of the reasons why they wanted that particular dollar amount. So, I guess the question at this point is, does anyone want to make a motion on this here tonight? Commissioner Wandale?
Mr. Chairman, I was prepared to make a motion, but, you know, good discussion, and I agree not to jump in too much too fast, but I like the idea of having a task force or committee with the mayor and Robbie and whoever else would like to join, but I do believe we ought to set some type of funds aside for each of the 11 entities. There's no better time for us to do that than now, and you know, so I'm in support of that, and I certainly join in on the committee or sit and listen, but I realize probably not a good time to make the motion for the resolution at hand. I like the theory of the resolution because it also, I don't want to handcuff any of the volunteer fire departments that might not need a new truck. They might have other needs, and I'd like for them to have the ability to use these funds in ways that they would come back to this body or the county commission and say, we would like to expend $89,000 and some change for these apparatuses. And then we say, okay, and then it comes down out of that restricted fund balance for them. I'm not a fan of cutting a big check to all the departments and saying sayonara, but I am a fan of supporting them and having the funds set aside so they feel secure as they move forward, because it's just too much cost. You know all about it, and we do all this training and they don't get reimbursed and all that kind of fun stuff, but true volunteers, and I just don't think most of the folks in our county realize they do it for nothing. So I'm not going to make that motion tonight, but I'd be in favor of attending that meeting, and I like this. So if it comes back up, I'd vote. I'll support it if that's what the motion is to do. So thank you for doing it.
Yes, sir. Any further discussion, or anybody want to take any action on this at this time?
I'd like to slide it over to the next meeting, if that's all right.
Sure.
You know, and have more discussion about
Okay.
it.
Robbie, can you
I'll
ensure
add
this
that,
is on
yes.
next month's agenda, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion to make that committee, or is that the one?
If you would like to form that kind of committee, yes.
I think, I'll make that motion to form the committee, so that way we're not coming back next month trying to decide to make a committee again.
Second.
Yeah.
So who would you like to be on that committee?
Whoever, I mean, I don't know how many commissioners, I don't care to be on it, so if that's what
Okay.
you're asking, I don't care.
All right.
If that's what you're getting at, but as the chairman of the fire commission, I think also that person should be on it. But whoever, I don't care to be one of the commissioners, and obviously
Okay.
I have a municipal fire department, so.
So that's Foster, Val,
I will.
Shelley said.
so how many commissioners do you want on the committee?
I mean, how many do we need? 3, 4? I know we probably want some fire chiefs from fire commissions. I don't know if that needs to come out of fire commission. And we could say 3 from fire commission, 3 from commission, and the mayor and
I've-
finance director.
I foresee.
I think the mayor would like to be on it too.
Yeah,
That's what
definitely the mayor's
that's the
input.
mayor.
I foresee the members of the fire commission wanting to choose and designate their particular representatives. And I'm not 100% definite on that. I'm just assuming that's what they would want to do. Mayor Frank, go ahead, please.
I would think you would want to include operations. So normally, I think this resolution actually goes through operations instead of budget. But the other thing is, operations has discussed multiple years on what's the best way to support, to Commissioner Wandell's point, what's the best way to support them? Maybe it's not a fire truck resolution going forward. Maybe it's time, so one of the things, if you look at that, that's a little over 2 cents on the property tax rate. And so you're gonna be taxing people to turn around and also give it back to the cities and the volunteer agencies. And so it might be time to just say, what are the goals? It's not about what money and how much they need. It's what goals do we want to accomplish as a county? What are our expectations? So one of the things, and Chairman Val, you know this, is a lot of the volunteer agencies do not want to do the first responder work. And if you look back on the fire truck resolution, the genesis of it was a fire truck in order to encourage first response as a supplement to an accident or, you know, so that you don't have an EMS system with extra ambulances that are out there, you know, standing in readiness. And so we're at a point where the volunteer fire departments really don't want to do that anymore. So is there something that we could work out? I mean, I think they're keeping it in the resolution now, but if you have Nathan standing up here, you'll hear him say, a lot of times that doesn't happen. And it's not a criticism of the agency, it's just they do not have the manpower, they do not have the volunteers. And so Nathan doesn't want to be in the business of enforcement, and he doesn't want to be in the business of coming to commission and saying, hey, here are the times that no one responded. And so are there other things that we could do? Are there other you know, things that we want to assess? And I have shared, for instance, with this, with operations before, you know, maybe we need to do the work and assess each department. So some districts have a lower ability to pay. So for instance, if you look at the TDEC funding, some cities received more because of the ability to pay index. So for instance, Norris in the county has the highest ability to pay. Do they get the same contribution? Do they not? Those are all things that I think it's worthy of a discussion and a reset. And then maybe after the county says, what are our priorities? What are we wanting to do? What are we wanting to see in the community? So for instance, we may want to say, we prefer that $100,000 a year go to adding more fire hydrants throughout the county. And that's going to make a bigger impact. And I don't know, I'm just throwing some things out that maybe there's some other kind of infrastructure plus needs for the departments that might better serve the constituents. And then you have those ISO ratings that directly impact homeowners and their insurance. So if we look at those ISO ratings, what's needed in Bryceville community? What's needed in Claxton in order to improve the ISO? And that would make better infrastructure or investment sense from a county standpoint, because we know if we take your tax money and we put it here and your ISO rating improves, then you're going to save money on the other side and have better service. So I just think we're at a time where that resolution ended, and maybe it's time for the county to say, as elected officials, what you all want to see. Then we have the conversation with the fire and what do you all need, and then maybe that meets and comes up with a better plan. That's just my suggestion.
Thank you, Mayor. So going back to this task force, I think the mayor is correct. That is probably something that needs to be brought up at operations. And then they could, certainly they'd want to hear our input, but they could designate then the members of that, and we could probably move forward a lot smoother and a lot easier by doing that. It may delay it, but still I think that's probably the right way to go.
I'll rescind my motion then.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, moving on. New business. District Attorney General Dave Clark. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize, I'm here before you unprepared and not on the agenda this evening. But something happened just as you were starting to meet that made it prudent for me to come over. The sheriff and I met with representatives from the University of Tennessee this afternoon, even after you started your meeting, and you heard the mayor allude to the governor and the legislature creating a $100 million fund for law enforcement. They have put that money out and is available for grant application. They're doing it on an accelerated level. or basis. And to aid them in doing that, they have contracted with the University of Tennessee Law Enforcement Innovation Center, which fortunately is headquartered in Anderson County. And so our friends here in Anderson County are helping to administer this grant process. And so we met with them this afternoon. This $100 million is being used for what are being called collaborative grants to fight violent crime. And so entities across the state can apply with the help of LEIC for up to $2 million per project, and there are no limit on the number of projects. The grant is 100%. There is no matching required. It's free money to help fight violent crime. We would like to apply, but because they're doing this on an accelerated basis, the money was made available, the grant process, was announced last month. The deadline to apply with a letter is later, it's the very 1st of December. And the deadline to submit the final application is January 15th, I believe. The grant would require a local government to advance the money and then being reimbursed each month. So you'd have to spend the money locally and then be reimbursed by the state. So in order for Anderson County to apply in collaboration, we would need the county to agree to, in principle, advance funds if we got these grants. No tax dollars would be lost. They would all be reimbursed at the end of each month. But nevertheless, some money would have to be designated to help create these grants. We do not have a formal detailed proposal. We just learned about this afternoon, but because of your holiday meeting schedule and the timing for the grants, there may not be an opportunity to come back or get this in the flow to commission with agenda deadlines and so forth if we don't act now. So what I'm here to ask for, in concert with the sheriff, is for your willingness to contingently commit up to $150,000 each month should we get these grants. We may not get any. We may get all. Perhaps we got one grant for $2 million. Maybe we got 3 grants for $50,000. We don't know. We just don't know. But before we begin the process, we would need to know that there was some interest on the part of Anderson County in getting in line to see if we could get some of this money. The 3 concepts in fighting violent crime, and it has to be a collaboration, by the way. It requires more than one entity. So one collaboration would be between the Sheriff's Department and the Crime Task Force to combat narcotics and the violent crime associated with narcotics. A second concept would be a collaboration between the Sheriff's Department and the Family Justice Center to combat domestic violence, specifically a shelter for those that have been abused. We do not have a shelter in Anderson County. It is the weak link in our combat against domestic violence. And the third would be a collaboration between the Sheriff's Department and the Crime Task Force for a Center for Digital Forensics and Crime Analysis to help us use our resources in a better way to identify and target the times and places that crime occurs, and also to help us detect those responsible for crime using electronic digital information that is a part of almost every crime today, whether that be a cell phone, a computer, or what have you. Almost every crime has some evidence of that type. And right now we're waiting up to a year to get those digital forensics results back. And in the meantime, the criminals are on the street and victims continue to suffer. So those are the concepts. How much would be involved in each grant? We don't know. All of this would have to come back to commission for approval. So ultimately, you would see the grant contract and have an opportunity to vote it up or down. So what we're looking for this evening is to sort of get this in the stream on its way to commission with the idea that we would need some MOU, a letter that expresses Anderson County's interest in supporting an application for these monies, and a willingness to look at dedicating some portion of undesignated fund balance to fund that reimbursement grant each month.
I think that's a great move.
So General, if I understand you correctly, what you would like to have here tonight is, and I'm wanting to get the wording correct for the motion, that a resolution be passed, motion be passed to send to whom?
To the state of Tennessee.
LEIC?
It would actually be the Office of Criminal Justice Programs,
Okay.
a MOU or letter of intent in support of one or all of these 3 grant concepts, and a contingent commitment of a, what essentially would be a revolving loan fund of $150,000.
Okay.
The bank would call that a line of credit.
Yeah.
And a lot of our grants are that way.
And frankly, I would hope the sheriff and I could bring some more information by the time commission meets.
Robbie, where will that money come from?
We would just increase the revenue code and increase an expenditure code. Most of our grants are reimbursable grants. Well, I'd say 75% of them. So we're used to this. This is the standard, normal for us. So you'll see a lot of budget amendments say increase revenue and increase, we'll say it's a grant. That's what we're doing. You're fronting the money up front. And
So
then
the unassigned fund balance?
Yes,
Okay.
basically fund balance but you're gonna get the money you spend each
Sure.
fiscal year back in that same fiscal
Right.
year.
If we're approved, and if we're not approved, then no harm, no foul, the money's still there.
And that's something audit looks at closely, and we'll move those funds back. If we get something after we've closed, they always take care of
Okay.
it.
So commissioners, are we clear on what the general is asking for? And if so, do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Beauchamp, I'm sorry. But Commissioner Vandegrift seconds the motion. Any discussion? Commissioner Smalley?
So, $150,000 would be, we'd actually be using that only as we went along and spent money on, it wouldn't be so much a month or anything like that.
No,
Just
sir.
depend on the expenditure, is that?
That's correct. The grants are up to 2.5 years. So over the course of that time, typically a grant like this would be front-end loaded. There's some equipment purchases that kind of start the process. But as soon as the grant was completed, whether that was in 1 month or 7, then the need for those monies would go away. So if let's say it was a $50,000 grant that we got, and we spent $50,000 of county funds and got reimbursed the next month, then we would be done.
And they would pay us back?
Each month.
Monthly?
Monthly, yes, sir. They'll do it quarterly or monthly, but I think we would want them to do it monthly.
So this would, if we approve something, it still has to go to commission?
Yes, sir.
to- Yeah.
I think that's why he's bringing it to us now, so we'll hurry up
Get us-
and get in front of commission before the deadlines.
Got it.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff Barker, would you like to comment on the motion?
The only thing I would like to add is that this is a really good opportunity for us as a community, not as an individual for the sheriff's office. When we met today, this thing is new, and the fact that it's being accelerated is really is fabulous, because lots of times these grant processes take forever and a day, and they're incredibly painful. But the state is ready to push this out, and we think, from talking to the UT representatives today, that some of the concepts we floated to them, we were really thinking outside the box compared to the other information they've received from other agencies, and it's really making us stand out. And I think our chances are going to be absolutely fabulous to get these. And the truth of the matter is there's, even though it's open to the entire state, there'll be a lot of agencies that won't even apply for these things. So I think we have an opportunity to really bring back some tax dollars back to Anderson County that we've paid out.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any further discussion? Commissioners, let it be known that there are 5 of us remaining here today. All 5 will have to vote in favor of this for the motion to pass. Just wanted to throw that out there. Any further discussion? Mayor Frank, do you have any comments on it? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, would you indulge me one more moment?
Yes, sir.
This past week, the mayor and Judges Tuck and Bowling and I had a conversation with OCJP, and I just want to take an opportunity to brag on Robbie's department and Randy in particular. They contacted us with another grant opportunity. They specifically wanted Anderson County to have this opportunity as opposed to any one of the, well, there were 92 other counties that were possibilities. And they have had such a good experience with Anderson County and Randy's work in supporting the grants that they enjoy working with Anderson County. And that kind of performance may be bringing resources back to us that other counties aren't getting a chance to get. So we're grateful for his help. He probably cringed when he saw me coming over here because it usually means more work for him. But he does such a great job that it's making things easy for us and better for our citizens.
Good job. Thank you, Jim.
Well, Randy's passing this along to John, so he's all in favor of new grants.
I tell him we appreciate him too. Anything else under new business?
I do have one budget amendment that I gave you out earlier. It's for $2,000 and, sorry, my glasses, $2,100 out of archives and records to replace old marriage records indexing books that are in the county clerk's office. These books fall apart after they are used so many times. So this is, and that's what we use this money for in archives and records for these old records. So this was a late addition, and if you're willing to accept,
Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Beauchamp to approve this number 26.
26.
Seconded by Commissioner Vandergriff. Any discussion? Again, it will require all 5 votes to pass. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Anything else under new business? Mayor Frank?
No action, just, I wanted to make you aware of a couple of things. One, you allocated $250,000 for each of the broadband applicants, and we did win both of those awards. I wanted to make you aware that on one of the grants, we're actually looking at some property where they have some needs, and we could negotiate that and get a considerable amount of money back to go back into your ARP fund. So I wanted to make you aware of that. So we're looking at a couple of our delinquent tax properties because they need to locate some infrastructure there. So it would be kind of a win-win, get it back on the books, and then also get ARP money back in. And then secondly, Commission authorized a federal access, it's federal lands access grant application. And we were awarded, it's over $1.8 million from Federal Highway for the Gibbs Ferry Park. It is a longer process, so construction, there's like a NEPA phase, there's engineering and a lot of work that has to go into it, and then it would be built out in 2025 because that's when they want everything to be wrapped up. And so it take a little while, but it's still, that is a massive win for Anderson County, and we're going to do a lot of good there at that particular park. So very excited about that.
What kind of changes do you foresee there at that park, Mayor?
So we're looking at doing a dock that would, is that what it's
A
called?
launch?
So when people are putting their boat in.
A launch, yeah.
Yes.
So they don't have to get down in the water to get up into the
Correct,
boat.
yes.
Heard a lot of complaints about that.
Yes, and then on the one end that's not used because of the current, we're looking at doing amenities there that would be for paddleboard, kayak launch, dedicated parking for that, improving the safety. So as you know, like over the years, we've had a couple of fatalities there at that one entrance. So we'll have some traffic engineering there, maybe either modify the entrance, move the entrance. A lot of that will be with a traffic engineer. We're looking at adding multiple amenities there.